Welcome, guys. Sorry we're a tad bit late. My bad. It's my fault. But welcome to No Cell Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 3, and I am joined as ever by the lovable Alan and the lovable Rebelhausen, as he wants to be called. I am Tequila, the body Ventura. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Have we all been watching the wrestling? Did we watch last week's shows? And have you seen Raw this week?
Yes, I watched Raw yesterday.
Yeah, caught up on the events of Raw. So some interesting bits and pieces went on Monday night.
Yes, we're going to get to it. In fact, we'll probably start there. We've got 4 topics for you. We'll try to cut it into 15-minute blocks to do an hour show. But yeah, we'll start with modern day. So, yes, the most recent wrestling in the WWE obviously was Monday Raw. I have flicked through it as I normally do. I don't know how much Rebel and Alan you guys have seen of it. I've flicked through it, and as I normally do, I watch what I like, which seems to be less and less because I've just become more fussy in my old age. But who wants to go first on this? Rebel, do you want to start with this? How did you find this week's Raw?
No, I didn't get an in-depth kind of 3-hour coverage of it because I just can't find 3 hours, unfortunately. But I did get a significant highlights package. And yeah, I think maybe there was not enough went on in 3 hours that justified a 3-hour show. But look, that is what it is. In terms of the highlights of what happened there, obviously Danhausen running amok again. I kind of like what they're doing with him. I think he's very cheeky, very funny. I don't know about the longevity of his shtick and how that will kind of carry going forward. But I suppose the fact that his curses are working, I think that entertains me. In terms of the stuff that went on, obviously we'll talk about the Samoans later on. Yes. I'm sure there's a bit to be unraveled there, but I want to talk about Finn briefly.
Finally, Rebel. Some people would say not months, but many years overdue for him to finally feud with Dominic. That's been coming for how many years has that feud been coming?
Yeah, there's been always interactions, I suppose, when Dom was part of tag team with his father, and they've kind of had overlaps, but they've been kind of sowing political unrest between the two of them kind of since the Judgment Day brought in Dom. Obviously, you know my feelings about WWE and the way that they cultivate factions and their failure to be able to do so, and I think they've demonstrated even more so after the failed rebirth of the bloodline under Solo Sikoa, that this new Judgment Day is probably going to go down the same path. But I think they made one mistake, and I'd be interested in getting your views on this. I think they loaded the gun on JD far too early. There's no way somebody that is that heavily associated with Finn Balor, has that connection with Finn Balor, that has kind of gone through what they've gone through together, would instantly pull the trigger when Finn Pele kicked Dom. There's no way that they should have actually had JD getting involved in the action on Monday. I think they kind of diluted their storyline a bit there.
Would you have slow burned it a bit more with JD then? You would have had to break up as is, but you would have had JD have to pick a side later on, or maybe even as far as he doesn't pick a side till WrestleMania and then he sides with Dominic, and maybe at WrestleMania they could have done that. I do think it's overdue. I agree. I think it's overdue. I think for me, the issue I've got with the Judgment Day, and it's actually pretty funny if you think about it, right? Look at the history of the stable. We're going back 5 years or so nearly. Edge created the stable and then he brings in Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. They then kick Edge out and recruit Finn Balor. Then Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest get kicked out and Balor takes over. Now Balor's being kicked out, and now Dominic, I guess, is the new leader, or maybe it will be Liv. it's funny that they've been kicked out in the order they've been recruited. So that means the next one has to be Dominic Mysterio in about a year or 2 years from now to be kicked out. Or do you think that Judgment Day, this should be it for them? Like, no more new members and Balor, the Balor feud, and then Balor breaks them up altogether. Do you know what I mean? Balor wins the feud and then breaks them up because they're not really the idea of them is meant to be this kind of chaotic, kind of dark, mysterious faction with Edge and Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, and now I don't know what their identity is. It's just like a club, aren't they?
Yeah, I think their first mistake with Judgment Day was actually Balor immediately turning on Edge when he came inside the gates of Judgment Day. I think they lost the edge, to pardon the pun, with what they could have done with the stable. I just think that since then it's just gone downhill, and it seems like it's a wish version of the Bullet Club where the leader gets taken out every so often by some new aspiring member, but they've done it in a very, very crap way.
Yeah. Quickly before we continue on, big up to Kuva in the chat who said, "I'm not really into this stuff, but I want to support you guys." Sorry, Kuva, we'll try to entertain you, even if you're not a wrestling fan anymore. Big up, mate. And also Wayne Bonner is here as well, saying, "Good evening, folks. Hope you're all well. Haven't watched last week's Raw or SmackDown yet. Still, Raw is still the weaker." I think they're. I don't know. I don't think I've got a favourite. I think they're both kind of similar right now. Alan, obviously, we've talked about some of Raw. We'll talk about the main event stuff in a sec. But what was your feeling on finally? Well, there's one segment that the Rebel didn't bring up. So let's talk about the Judgment Day, but also, what did you guys think of the whole Seth Rollins? I've seen a lot of people parodying the Seth Rollins dancing around, putting his mask on, and people are saying this is so cringy because it looked dumb. I know what they were going for, Seth Rollins stuff. Visually, it looked dumb. It looked like musical chairs.
During that whole segment, there was one thing that I shouldn't really say this. This is horrible for me thing to say.
Go on.
But one of the guys, one of the masked guys, because they all pretty much look the same. But there was one guy who stood out more than the rest. He was a bigger guy, a lot bigger.
Well, he's a terrible decoy then, isn't he? Because obviously they know that he's going to be wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly. Why have you got this guy here? But the whole thing was just goofy. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But yeah, I agree. I know what they were going for, which is fine. But it just I don't know. In such a confined space of a 16 by 16 foot ring, it just looks a bit shit.
It looked a bit cheap. It looked a bit tacky and cheap. Like I said, I know what they were going for, but I thought it looked a bit like, I don't know. And the worrying thing about it, and I'll bring you in a sec, Rebel, with this one, is that the two, it's not their fault. The injuries have caused all this, but the two remaining people of the Vision are the two ones who don't belong in the Vision. When I think of the Vision, it was Rollins and the two and the two Bronze. Then they brought in Logan Paul, who, by the way, I think Logan Paul doesn't need to be in a faction. He can carry his own stuff. He doesn't need it. Austin Theory probably needs it, right? Because I think Austin Theory is quite lacking. But Logan Paul doesn't need no mouthpiece.
That's true. He's a good heel as is. He doesn't need anybody.
Yeah. So
he can rile up a crowd, no problem. What he's got to mention is his little Pokemon card he sold for $16 million, and that's it. He's got the whole crowd in the palm of his hand.
All he's got to do is be himself, and he hasn't got to act or be himself. So I'm not feeling the Vision thing because it's not their fault because of the injuries. I'm just not feeling. I don't see them as a threat anymore because their big guns. Their big guns are gone. I just don't. Even Heyman's been taken out. Heyman's not even with them right now because he was attacked the week before. So even Heyman's not there now. So everybody who is the Vision is gone, and you're left with the two kind of jobber guys. Even though I don't think Logan Paul is a jobber, but that's how it comes across. So Rollins is feuding with the two guys who weren't even there when they turned on him, because they turned on him when it was Heyman was there and the two Bronze turned on him. Theory and Paul weren't even there and now Rollins is feuding with them in name only because it's like, well, hold on, they weren't even there, but they weren't even the guys who attacked me anymore.
Well, exactly,
the guys who attacked me are all injured. So it's
really
not working for me.
Yeah. So yeah, that feud should be now put on hold, stuck on the back burner or something. Let Rollins have some more time off. Let him have some time off. No point bringing it back right now because there's nothing for him.
Rebel, did you buy the Rollins stuff or did you think it was a bit cringe like I did?
I think that it was over the top. I would have gotten if they had maybe a couple in there so that they could have done the whole escape thing so that they couldn't actually chase down him. But it was just a bit messy, a bit blah. And as you said, in the 16x16, it just looked stupid. I think you get the feeling where creative is with the division now, because the fact that they're saying, actually, we're not going to damage Paul by having him associated with this anymore. We're taking him out. They actually exited Paul from the storyline because his main anchor points were gone. And I'd imagine what you're going to see is probably some element of Paul returning with Brock for his retirement finish in Mania. But as regards the division, like, I can actually get why they might have Logan Paul going against Seth because of, they had that 3 years of a gap between their two Elimination Chamber incidences. And, you could do a bit of settling the score there. But they really should have just, when Braun got taken out, just said Heyman kind of doing whatever Heyman does with the way he can speak words and kind of saying, yeah, I'm not representing you. You're on your own, boys. And he booked it. But they tried to persist with it. They tried to go down angles. And now we're going to be left with a half-baked mask thing for a while. Now, if there's a long-term payoff where they're going to use some of these students in some storylines, there's a couple of them ready, fair enough. But I don't think they're doing that. I think this is just them out of ideas in terms of how many pivot points they can have because of the amount of injuries they've had.
Yeah, I mean, even Wayne's asking in the chat, are they still doing the mysterious mask? Yes, but now they've switched it, Wayne. It was the heels doing it, and now it's Rollins doing it. Now it's a babyface doing it. Yeah, it seems like there's been too much of that stuff. There's too many of these guys who appears in main event over the last couple of years who are masked, rip the mask off to get the big surprise, and then cost somebody the match. Hopefully, when this feud is over, they won't go back to the mask man stuff for a long time. But who knows? Very quickly, Alan, didn't get a chance to ask you about the Judgment Day stuff before we head to the main event stuff. Too late for you, like it is for me, with the whole Judgment Day thing. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I agree. Too late.
Yeah, they've really dragged this faction out. It's every week, you see them sitting backstage playing at the time 2K25 or something. So they were promoting the games. I'm guessing they'll be doing 2K26 next week with the games of worldwide standard release. But yeah, that's all they tend to do. They just sit back there. They just bitch. Are you coming to my match? Are you going to be watching my match? Are you going to come out with me? Oh, I need another title match. And I thought, it's the same stuff with the Judgment Day. I really think now Finn's broken away. Finally, I think hopefully we can get the Demon back. Hopefully that'll be the WrestleMania match. I'm hoping it'll be Demon Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. I would like to see the Demon back. Yeah,
I could see them doing that. I think there's a good chance of that.
I would love to see pre-WWE Finn Balor. When he was in NXT. He was a great star. He was a massive star in then. And then obviously that injury he sustained when he won the Universal title some years ago. That's really what stopped his momentum, I think.
Well, Vince McMahon lost faith in him after that. He thought, because to be honest, he was much smaller than he was a much smaller guy than Vince McMahon likes to push anyway. We all know that. So True. Vince was just looking for any kind of a reason why. And of course, because he got injured, I think he got into Vince's mind. He's injury prone when he's not particularly. He hasn't had that many injuries, just that one really. But I think that curtailed his push. Okay, quickly moving on again. There wasn't that much wrestling wise in the ring. We had Bayley win the gauntlet match to get a chance at AJ Lee. Little surprised. I did think AJ Lee would not be defending it at all. I thought she'd just defend it at WrestleMania and drop it back.
Yeah, it looks like
she's actually going to be defending it on a Raw. So I'm surprised that she's going to be wrestling on a weekly show. I thought she was going to be part-time pay-per-views only, if that.
Yeah.
I still think she drops it back to Becky at WrestleMania. I still think that is the match. Becky is going to probably, I reckon she'll probably interfere in that match. So I still think that's the direction with that. And the only other match that really I was paying attention to was the squash of Rusev, who was destroyed by Obafemi. I wasn't expecting Rusev to win. I was expecting it to be a bit more competitive, though, because I quite like Rusev, but it looks like that he's failed. It looks like it's not worked with him again, unfortunately. It looks that way. What do you guys think of the Rusev versus Femi match? That was technically the main event. That was the last wrestling match there was.
Go on, Kev.
For me, I think, as you said, his return, it just didn't capture the audience. People don't seem interested in Rusev, and I think he just didn't get the traction that Hunter and the creative team would have expected. Whether there was bad choices made in terms of building him back into the circuit, maybe they put him in the wrong feuds, but I think the last chance that he had to kind of get back over was that bit they were going to do with Sheamus, and then obviously Sheamus got injured, and they were all of a sudden looking at Rusev kind of going, we don't know what we're going to do with you. It's kind of sad for Rusev because he obviously was hoping that he'd have a redemption in WWE and that he would have kind of gotten the plaudits that Cody Rhodes has gotten since he came back. But, it would be a mercy if they actually said, you know what, Rusev, we're going to let you go to TNA. We're not even going to enforce your non-compete. And obviously then TNA would owe us one if we wanted to pull somebody from there.
Yeah, I think in the WWE at least, him without Lana, or Lana, however you want to pronounce the name, probably has never really worked. He was at his best when they were doing the Rocky IV ripoff with Ivan Drago ripoff. And that was what it was. And that worked well because she was very good at her job. Of course, it can't really work anymore because everybody knows that she's not Russian. As soon as they did that, they destroyed her character and by proxy his character. As soon as they had her admit that she wasn't really Russian and she was just a valley girl. When you listen to her talk, she's just a valley girl. They kind of have never been able to go back to that. So I think, unfortunately for Rusev, that he's one of those wrestlers who peaks early. I don't think he's ever going to get back to his first year or two when he had Lana and he was feuding with Cena over the US belt. Came out on a tank at WrestleMania, stuff like that. I mean, I doubt he's even going to get into the WrestleMania card unless it's a battle royal. Let's quickly move on to the main event segment. Now, last week I did say to Kev and you, Alan, that the Samoans have to react to what Punk said. And if the Samoans don't react, and I said all of them, but especially the ones on Raw, I think Jacob Fatu might want to get involved in this as well, but they might not bother because, he's going to be feuding with Drew. So they might just not bother. But at the least, the guys on Raw have to reply to what Punk said. And they did. In the main event segment, they came out. Now, I really like this because I like what they're doing. Punk, for me, is a very good storyteller. I don't think he's that amazing in-ring wrestler, especially not anymore. He has slowed down as his age. But he's still got all the promo ability and he's still got all the storytelling inside the ring and out. It's the storytelling. And I think it made Jey Uso the most interesting Jey Uso has been in a year in that one segment because I'm generally intrigued by where they go next. You had Punk saying about Roman Reigns never fully apologized to them, which he never did. This is all true. That's why it's good stuff because the Reigns character, although he's a babyface, never actually came out and said, I'm sorry for treating you badly. I'm sorry for all the abuse I caused you under the bloodline. He's never apologized. And it's one of those little things that has kind of been left unresolved. So I'm liking the fact that Punk is now talking about that and building upon it. Because that's quite a long-term storytelling. Because I think that this storyline is kind of carrying on from the end of the Rhodes Roman storyline. So much so that Punk even brought up, I said this about Reigns' dad dying, but one of the reasons why I said this is because a couple of years ago, Roman Reigns was talking about one of my mentors, Dusty Rhodes, and how come Roman Reigns wasn't being shouted at for saying these horrible things, but if I do it, I get called all these things for bringing up his dead father. So why is it okay for Reigns to do it? I love the fact Punk brought that in, because it's long-term storytelling that's building that builds on something that happened years ago in a different story. They're not going to be able to recapture the Rhodes and Reigns. They won't be able to do that. They're not. They won't get to that level. But it's a nice build off previous WrestleMania main events to try and give this one a bit more prestige. So I really like the segment. I think it's just going to end up with Punk probably facing the Usos over the next couple of weeks in singles matches, just to tide them over until Reigns comes back, and just to give Punk something to do for the next couple of weeks as they build.
Reigns is back next week, isn't he?
I imagine he'll probably get involved then. I reckon it'll be Punk versus one of the Usos, probably Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. The worst one, yeah. Well.
Yeah. What did you guys think of it very quickly?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was good storytelling from Punk. I thought it was actually very good, very, very intricate in his details about, like you said, I brought up Dusty Rhodes, and then just because I mentioned Seeker, I'm in a shitload of trouble. So, I thought that was good. And the fact he kept bringing up Roman Reigns, and then the Usos were like, well, no, this is not about Roman Reigns. This is about you apologizing to us. And of course, Punk being Punk, very stubborn, didn't actually say he was sorry for that, but he just said, I'm sorry that Roman Reigns couldn't apologize to you about treating you so badly in the bloodline. So it's for once they're picking up a bit of steam in a pay-per-view match. Sorry, PLE. Sorry.
Yeah,
Rebel. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think that the build is actually very clever, and obviously the Samoans would have had to kind of bought into this whole story before Punk was even allowed to drop that line, because we all know about the Samoans and family and how in their heritage, outside just in their general heritage, how big family is to them and how important it is that respect is shown to family. And I suppose part of that they now can be brought into this storyline, that even though you have on one end Punk saying, but you said Dustin Rhodes, blah, 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 but I'm getting hung out to dry. You can turn around and kind of go, yeah, but you're not Samoan, very, very quickly, and kind of dismiss the differentials while absolutely being hypocritical at the same time. In terms of where I see it going with the Usos, I think they hinted, and they've been hinting at a tag match. For the second interaction between Punk and a Samoan in the final segment, they have had a Jericho reference. We had a list last week, and then there was another one this week. So
the learning tree stuff, yeah.
The learning tree. So I think they're kind of hinting at Jericho coming in beside Punk in some regard. We also have the potential for additional Samoans, because it seems like they're hinting at Zilia Fatu turning up in NXT next week. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But this storyline has the potential for both bloodlines, at least not, even if it's not as their main story with the MFTs, etc., that they could actually be kind of go, right, for this 10-15 minutes of a beatdown, we're on the same page. And maybe you see Punk getting brutally attacked by a bunch of Samoans, including Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, etc., as part of this build-up, because they kind of gave him a common ground to stand on. No matter how much they may hate each other in battle, they brought somebody that's dear to them has been brought into the picture, and you could see potentially a raft of different engagements and interactions between now and WrestleMania. As regards to the sorry part, I think Alan hit that on the head. I think it was very well done. I think they're trying to give Punky's pipe bomb kind of type level of oh wow, oh holy crap statements, and I think they did well that they didn't completely have Jay and Jimmy kind of wailing him. I think the bit that they did was sufficient, and Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week's installment of Samoans versus pensioner wrestler.
Yeah, it could be that Punk just literally goes through every Samoan on the roster and for the next 7 weeks. Jimmy 1 week, Jay another week. Who knows? So Zakaya probably will come over for a week. The only one who I think probably won't get involved is Jacob. I don't think they'll want to have him lose to Punk, but I can see Punk going through a whole bunch of Samoans before eventually losing to Reigns, because I'm pretty sure that is what's going to happen. Okay, we're at the halfway point, so big up to everyone still watching. We're going to move on to some of the other topics. We now know, as of last week's SmackDown, Cody Rhodes won the title as we kind of predicted probably that he was going to. I know some people, there's been a lot of backlash. We'll quickly talk about that. It's a lot of backlash to the YouTube video where Cody won the belt. Apparently, it was one of the most disliked videos that WWF has released. So there seems to be a lot of blowback. But whether we like it or not, they are not doing the multi-man match anymore. That's out. That's it. The ticket sales were bad. Apparently, the reason is the ticket sales were bad. So they wanted to run the Orton Cody feud that I'm pretty sure was always going to happen, but I don't know if they were going to run it so soon. I think maybe they were planning it maybe later in the year. But no, it's going to be Cody versus Orton for the belt. Cody obviously just winning the title back. If he does drop it to Orton, he's going to have a very short reign, just like McIntyre is. So are we hot potato in that title a bit too much now? Because if McIntyre only held it for 2 months, if that, Cody's won it back. And if Orton wins it, which I think that's probably the likely result, maybe via a heel turn, I still think that could happen. They're hot shotting that belt a lot, and I know we don't like it. But how are you feeling about that? We don't need to talk about the Punk raid. We just spoke about that really. But how are you feeling now with that decision for a singles match, Cody and Orton? And it's probably going to be Fatu versus McIntyre in the undercard. How are you guys feeling about that?
I think they should have just pulled the trigger on the multi-man match myself. I think it would have been far more interesting because we've had singles contests, haven't we, the last couple of WrestleManias?
Normally the one.
I mean, yeah, we had, was it Cody Rhodes versus John Cena last year with Travis Scott interfering. I use that term loosely.
Yeah.
The year before that was Cody versus Roman Reigns. I think a multi-man match would have been better. I think it would have added a bit more spice to the card. I mean, granted, it would take matches off the card, so you won't have a singles contest between Drew and Fatu or anything like that. But I think it would have been more preferable. It would be a bit more. It would create more anarchy if they had a 4-man match in there. And it's a shame, and I'd love to see Aleister Black thrown into there because he's got a bit of a program going with Randy. He's got a win over him, so I can see that if Randy is to win the world title, guaranteed backlash. It'll probably be Randy Orton versus Aleister Black.
Don't you think though, Alan, that if this was a normal PLE, then I think that match could probably main event it. But this is WrestleMania. Most likely the night 1 main event. I don't think that Aleister Black should be in the main event of a WrestleMania. I still think that should be reserved, really. And it mostly has been. You can make an argument that maybe, I mean, I'm not being sexist, but maybe the Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, which was the night 1 main event a couple of years ago, maybe didn't belong there. You can make an argument, even though at the time the storyline was very, very, very big, that the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, which also main evented night 1 a couple of years ago, that wasn't a main event, a WrestleMania main event caliber match, but it had enough crowd heat where it was going to be. I just don't think that a multi-man match with these guys would have had enough heat for a WrestleMania main event night 1, even if it is the night 1, which we know is not as important as the night 2. It's just the way that it is. Night 2 is what closes the whole weekend. So I think that they've done this because they realize that Orton versus Cody, if they tap into the history, and they've got 6 weeks to do this, and I'm hoping they do starting next week on SmackDown, or this week's SmackDown. They really tap into the whole history about them, going back to the legacy days and everything. They can build that where that will be a WrestleMania worthy kind of a main event. I just think because it's WrestleMania, you can't just throw guys like Aleister Black and even someone like Jacob Fatu, who I like. I don't think he's ready either. They haven't done enough with him where he should be in the WrestleMania main event. They haven't built him up enough. So I don't think he would deserve to be there, though I like him. I think Drew could have been there, They could have done a triple
Yeah.
threat, and maybe that's a fair argument. Maybe they could have done a triple threat. I would have been okay with Jacob Fatu being added, but I'm just thinking from their perspective. I think to end night one, they needed a bigger match, and Cody versus Orton, if they play it right, can be that match. Rebel, where are your thoughts on it?
I'm bored of Cody. I was on board with him finishing the story when he came back, and I was on board with the whole thing about his dad and the fact that they never held that particular championship and actually bringing it home and all the rest of it. I was on board with that. I even got on board with the fact that they decided to run it back for another 12 months and him fighting to get back to that main event against Roman Reigns, and obviously the overproduced monster piece, whatever way you might want to view it, that was that finish of that story. But we give out about superstars that are constantly being put at the pinnacle of the mountain. And if you are having a well-balanced roster, a roster that, you can move them up along the jigsaw and kind of plug them into the main event scene in rotation and keep everything fresh and rosy in the garden. But we're having Cody Bloody Rhodes rammed down our throats. I honestly couldn't care what builds they give this match. I just want Orton to RKO him straight out the gate, squash him, done. I'm bored of Cody. I don't want to look at Cody in the main event. And I think it's silly to have him back in the title picture. And we'd be better off with Drew versus Orton.
Well, I understand about being bored with Cody. I too think he's near the end of his babyface run. I don't know if it has to be like at WrestleMania, but I do think that we're in the last 12 months of his big babyface run. There is certainly a heel turn that will come at some point. I do, however, think that Orton will be the one turning heel. I think he's going to beat Cody by punting him. I thought he's going to punt Cody at some point, and every time I call it, it never happens. But I'm convinced that Orton will win the belt as a heel, because I don't think they're not going to turn Cody yet. It's going to come. I think by WrestleMania next year, he will be a heel. But I think that for most of this year, I think he's going to stay a face. So I think Orton goes heel. I think Orton cheats. Aleister Black has been kind of whispering in his ear a little bit. So has been like tormenting him a little bit. Aleister Black's playing the old carrying cross role now, it seems, where he kind of whispers these dark thoughts into these baby faces, telling them to let go, telling them to be their true selves. And Orton's always been a bit of a, he's more of an anti-hero than a proper baby face. So it doesn't take much to turn that character into a heel. So I think that he will turn on Cody and punt him and win the belt with the punt, is what I would think. Let's quickly talk about WrestleMania while we're on the subject. The third topic I've got for us is AJ Styles recently said in an interview, I think it might have been on Stephanie McMahon's podcast, or it might have been elsewhere, that he wanted to retire at Royal Rumble and not WrestleMania, that he could have easily extended his contract for a couple more months and then had his last match against Gunther. They easily could have padded that out to WrestleMania if they wanted to. But that he didn't want to, that he thought that WrestleMania has lost its luster. So I thought that's interesting that the wrestlers would say that. So the question is simple, guys. To me, I'm not sure it has, but do you feel WrestleMania has lost its luster? And if it has, why?
I think the whole 2-night thing has wrecked it a little bit. I mean, I understand, you don't want a big 5-hour pay-per-view. I mean, look at the events like WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 7, both had 14 matches in it on each card. 14 matches. Yet they crammed it all into a 3-hour runtime, maybe a little over. You still had backstage promos, you had interviews and all that kind of stuff. But I think the whole 2-night thing, I know what they're doing it. They're just doing it for the gate prices. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all the only reason they're doing it for. They could easily get all these people on a 3-hour card, no problem. But they don't want to. That's what I think anyway. I just don't think. And plus, you used to see like celebrities in the crowd. Back in the day, you'd see like someone in a ringside and stuff like that. They would have like guests and doing little bits here and there during WrestleMania time. Like your Bob Ueckers, your Vanna White, Burt Reynolds, famously at WrestleMania 10, who didn't really want to be there, really. But yeah, I think personally, I think it has. I think it's lost. It doesn't seem as big as it used to be. Maybe I'm just being cynical because
Rebel, is Alan right? Is the key that it's become 2 nights? If it was still one night, would it have retained it? Or maybe you don't agree full stop with AJ? Do you think is it still just as important as it always has been?
Yeah, no, I think the 2-night thing has definitely hurt it. Like, let's just look at WrestleMania 41, for instance. We had Jey Uso and Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. We had Kofi and Xavier versus Eric and Ivor for the World Tag Team Championships. We had Jade Cargill and Naomi in just a match. There was no championship at stake. We had Jacob and LA Knight for the United States Championship. We had El Grande Americano and Rey Fenix for nothing. We had Tiffany and Charlotte for the Women's Championship. And then we had what arguably is probably the only match that didn't have a championship that belonged on night one's card was Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk for the custody of Paul Heyman match, which obviously was quite a good setup. So there's 2 matches straight away that I'd be getting rid of from that, and that's Jade Cargill and Naomi's match and El Grande and Rey Fenix's. And then in terms of one of those championship matches, I'm probably having that on a pre-WrestleMania warm-up show. Like, no disrespect to Woods and Kofi, that tag championship could have been done as a pre-show. So that's 3 matches stripped out straight away. Sunday, Io Sky, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley. Grand, yeah, no problem. That women's triple threat match. Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest in the street fight. Again, probably a match that did need to culminate in WrestleMania. Fatal 4-way then for the Intercontinental Championship with Dominic, Braun, Penta, and Finn Balor. Possibly could have been a pre-show match. The Open Challenge, Randy Orton, Joe Hendry. I actually got no problem with that one because it was a bit of fun. It was kind of a filler match, and it probably wouldn't have affected a one-night WrestleMania by running it. Logan Paul, AJ Styles, that could have been a pre-show match. The Women's Tag Team Championship, no disrespect again, that could have been a pre-show match. And then, obviously, the main event, Cena, Cody. So, like, I'm stripping out, 6 matches out of the 2 nights? That makes it a one-night PLE, maybe.
So it's the old adage that, you know, sometimes less is more. So it would have been a much better card, just a 1-night card, than just padding it out over 2 nights.
Yeah,
with a lot of filler. It's still the biggest night of the year, but I do feel that night 2 is the way I look at it. Is night 2 is the biggest night of the year. Night 1 almost feels like a pre-show. It's not, and it shouldn't be that way, but it always does. It always feels like a little bit of a pre-show to me. So it's like that's why the main event of night 1 is always you never remember that the most. You always remember the night 2 main event. Ever since they've done these, the 3 or so years, the night 1 main event is not the one people generally talk about that much. Even though last year, as Rebel said, the triple threat Punk Rollins Reigns match was a lot better than Cody versus Cena. But I still think people will remember the Cody versus Cena match, even though it might be for the wrong reasons. Because of the fuck finish and how pissed off people were that The Rock didn't show up. And obviously Cena wins his 17th world title, which a lot of people, not myself particularly, care about. So I understand why they do it. They took it from New Japan, who used to do these 2-night shows in January. So they've taken it from that. So they weren't the first ones to do this, these 2-night kind of pay-per-views. But it's now transcended into America. We've seen that it's blood into SummerSlam. So SummerSlam's now two nights. And I reckon over the next couple of years, Royal Rumble will become 2 nights as well. And they'll main event night 1 of Royal Rumble with the women's, and then on main event night 2 with the men's. And that's what they'll do. I hope we don't get to the point where every pay-per-view is two nights. This is THQ. This is TKO we're talking about. Very greedy. They will dilute the product so much if they do try to make every pay-per-view or PLE 2 nights. I don't think they're going to just yet, but I'm pretty sure, Alan, the big 4 at least, you know, the 4 I'm on about.
Yeah.
I think could all become 2 nights. The next one's going to be the Rumble for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they've already done it with SummerSlam, haven't they? They charged SummerSlam for a 2-night event last year. which
Yes.
I don't actually remember. I can't remember anything about SummerSlam last year.
Punk versus Gunter, and then Rollins cashes in.
Oh yeah,
and
of course. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Cody wins the belt back from Cena. That was the two main event.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't.
Other than that, nothing.
I agree with you guys about it being a bit more diluted. I still think night 2 is important to me, but I do think that night 1 is just kind of, like I say, it feels almost like a pre-show to me.
But here's the thing, Mr. Body Ventura. If you rein it back in, you keep your pacing on point, you make that a one-day WrestleMania, you forget how big that first Raw after WrestleMania used to be. There used to be some absolutely fantastic kind of story launches, even story finishes on that Raw after WrestleMania, where you might get closure on something that happened on WrestleMania the night before, and you see a hug out, or you see a heel turn, or you see something, as a result of that WrestleMania match. They're after losing that Raw after WrestleMania specialness. It's just another Raw now. And I think we talked about pacing in terms of the Elimination Chamber already, and how it was absolutely diabolical in between the matches. But in terms of their planning, and if they continued, as you said, in this policy of 2-night PLEs, if the Rumble, Money in the Bank, kind of, even though they've killed Money in the Bank as a concept, which is another night's show, I think the product will actually become unwatchable if it gets that diluted by water.
Yeah, I agree, but I still think they're gonna, just because the TKO are just all about the ticket prices, the value of the tickets are lesser than they've ever been before. You have to pay more to get less wrestling. At least on the weekly shows, it's always been a bit like that, but now on the PLEs and the big events, now you end up sitting on your hands for just as long as you do get to watch wrestling. So this is what I do. That they have more cards, they have more pay-per-views than ever before. They've now got 2-night shows, but really, you don't get as much wrestling overall on the PLEs as you used to. So the actual value proposition is lesser than it's ever been. You pay more tickets to get to watch less wrestling.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 matches, isn't it, on all these PLEs?
You get if they've got gimmick matches, because they've now got to have a women's and a men's. So Money in the Bank, you're only going to get 4 matches. Elimination Chamber, you're only going to get 4 matches. Royal Rumble, you're only going to get 4 matches. A War Game, a Survivor Series, you're only going to get 4 matches, because now they have to double up on these gimmick matches. I'm not saying that it's not the women's fault. I'm just saying that they don't have to do this, but they do. They always have to run now the two of the gimmick matches that take up half the show. So
that's why War Game should be its own pay-per-view, and the next Survivor Series back to a traditional 5-on-5 elimination tag.
Just have,
but that's a different conversation.
You don't need 2 War Games matches. Just have 1 War Games match, and then alternate from year to year. If you're going to have a men's War Games match, then the next year you can have a women's.
Yeah, it should be dependent on what the feud is that year.
Exactly, it depends on you generally need a proper stable of heels. Normally, that's the way it works. You need a proper stable of heels to be ready to face a group of baby faces. That's the formula Dusty Rhodes always came up with. That's the origins of the War Games match was Jim Crockett Promotions. Dusty Rhodes created it, and generally it was used as a vehicle for the 4 horsemen. The 4 horsemen were feuding with Rhodes and a bunch of baby faces. That's why it was created.
But there's a lot to be said as well by, with War Games, keeping it fresh. You don't have to run War Games every year. You don't even have to have any War Games match in a particular calendar year if the work isn't done to get you there. What was wrong with Hell in a Cell? Having the culmination of a rivalry between a heel and a babyface, and they go on brutalizing each other inside in Hell in a Cell. When's the last time we actually got a proper Hell in a Cell match? Because I don't remember it.
Punk and McIntyre, but that was well deserved because they'd been feuding for nearly a year. So that was a climax of the feud.
It's probably the best Hell in a Cell match they've actually put on in a long time.
In a long time, yeah. Yeah, no, because Rebel's right. They just used to just kind of fabricate feuds that didn't belong in there. So no, I understand what you're saying, and I think we're all in agreement. The War Games should not be. There should not be 2. There should definitely never be 2 in one night because it's overkill. The second it loses its impact. The last year's Survivor Series was a dreadful show. Last year's Survivor Series was boring. I don't need to two. Each War Games match lasts with the entrances and everything, and then they're 40
Jay's
minutes.
running it back.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't.
And what was wrong as well, as you said, with the traditional Survivor Series matchup, the elimination tag, and maybe even having something like the captain of the team gets to be Raw GM for a night. Have those old kind of funny stipulations in there.
Yeah.
Where, they can absolutely screw over everybody that they want to get revenge on.
It's Triple H. Triple H, because Triple H was such a fan of Dusty Rhodes, and I don't mind him for this. I have similar tastes to Triple H, actually, shockingly enough. But because he loves the War Games so much, and obviously he didn't like Survivor Series as much, so he's just imposed that, because he was never allowed to. Vince McMahon would never allowed the War Games. That's why Triple H was only allowed to run it in NXT, because Vince wouldn't let him do it. But as soon as Triple H took over and it became his baby, he's brought the War Games in, because he's always been a fan of it, because he was a fan of the ones in the 80s, like I say, with the Horsemen and Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, which is what he was created for. But he's become his own worst enemy now, because, as you said, he's literally diluted it down, force-fed it every year. I don't want to. I want them to go back to Survivor Series for many years. I don't want to see the War Games for like another 5 years. I don't. I've had my fill. Last year's was terrible. It was a terrible show last year, Survivor Series.
But like, if you remember, the William Regal War Games.
Yeah.
Like, every single one of those hit like crack, because it was impactful. You were seeing the build of Undisputed Era going against the people that they were going against at the time. Like, the Kevin Owens return to NXT, there was reasonings behind everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's one more topic. We haven't got long. It's an interesting one. I want to try and throw one of these out there every week. A little bit of a kind of a different one. Either maybe it might be about history, or just maybe like we might do some top 5 shows at some point. But as for now, we're putting these like little talking points in, and it's a simple one. And you guys can take it one of two ways. You can take it as a kayfabe way, or you can take it as just how you think it looks pretty. What is your favorite finisher in professional wrestling? Like I say, it can be either what you think looks the best, or what you think hurts the most. What looks the most devastating, or what is just the most flashy? I only really want one answer, but they're both different criterias. There might be certain moves which look really good, but don't look real enough. They don't look devastating. They don't have enough impact. I can think of a lot of high-flying moves that I don't think that are very great to look at athletically, but they don't look like they should hurt people that much. So just give me the wrestler and the finisher and your reasons why. Who wants to go first? Alan?
For me, it's going to be Logan Paul's Pulverizer.
Interesting.
In today's wrestling, I think he hits it actually very well. He's actually very, very good. He hits a lot of his moves on point, to be honest. I rarely see him botch. Triple H has always said in the past that he's better than he deserves to be. But that Pulverizer, he's only hit it twice that I've seen. But every time he has hit it perfectly. Okay, the one on G1, but that's G1's fault. He didn't take it very well during the Elimination Chamber match. But
Wayne in the chat is breaking the rules. Today's wrestler, Wayne. Not of all time. Today, 2026 active wrestler. Sorry, Alan. So that Pulverizer, interesting. I wasn't expecting that one.
Pulverizer, yeah.
Oh, Rebel. Well, what have you got?
The one that I'd say cheer the most for would be the RKO, because you can kind of get multiple different spots out of. But the one that kind of I nearly grimace when I see it happening, because it looks like it absolutely hurts like a son of a gun to take, is Jacob Fatu's Mighty Moonsault, because that thing looks like it hurts hard when he lands on you.
Wow, interesting. So you've gone for something that just looks like it would kill you, Alan. With Paul's finisher, is it because you think it looks pretty, or is it more because it looks like it's devastating? Because they're not really the same thing. Some can be very athletic looking moves, but they don't look like they actually hurt that much. But I think
it's more of the aesthetic. It looks good. It looks like a good move. So it's more wherever it hurts like hell, but it looks good.
It's more about the presentation and it being a devastating. Because I know, like you like your power bombs and your choke slams and very devastating moves. Not that people use. Does anyone use a chokeslam as a finisher anymore? I don't think so.
Joe Hendry.
Does he use a chokeslam?
Really? He's too small for a
Yeah.
chokeslam. He's way too small to use a chokeslam for a finisher. Fair enough.
It's
And again, no one really hits a powerbomb anymore. That's my issue. The days of
They've got to be really
just-
tall, haven't they? They've got to be
yeah.
really tall to hit the powerbomb.
Sorry, Rob, I cut you off.
I guess I'll give mine quickly. Okay, so mine is one that I think is both, but the devastation, and Alan knows that one of my favorite wrestlers is Vader. I think Vader is one of the best monster heels. Go watch Big Van Vader in 1992, 1993 WCW and watch what he does to people. Watch what he does in matches against Ricky Steamboat. He absolutely murders that man. And Steamboat, bless him, is so good at selling. It's a perfect. Watch what Big Van Vader does to Ricky Steamboat in 1993. I remember vividly watching it as a kid. Ricky Steamboat says to Vader, no, you're not the man, begging with him. Vader stopped punching him in the face, these stiff punches. Say, who's the man, Ricky? Who's the man? And Steamboat's nearly crying. I love Vader. So what's the closest to Vader? The Toonami. Can't even say it. Bronson
Tsunami.
Reed. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That is my favourite finisher of today, because not only is it an impressive physical feat from a man his size, but it looks like it absolutely murders you. And it gets a reaction from the crowd as well. When he hits it, right, people don't expect a kick out. And I think the finisher has been quite protected as well. I think it even pinned Reigns. I'm trying to remember what he used to pin Reigns, because Reigns rarely ever loses. But Bronson Reed holds a pinfall over him in the last year. I think that was with the two. Why can't I not say the word? That move. I can't say the word. That would be my choice anyway. Bronson Reed's Tsunami.
Yeah,
Tsunami.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know
I love
what's
the way
wrong
he
with
hits it. It looks like he goes kind of like dead weight as well when he like leaps off the top rope.
He doesn't really jump. Because he doesn't really jump off the top rope. He just kind of gets on top, and then he just in gravity does everything else. It's just just falls. He doesn't jump. He just falls. He just looks like it absolutely murders. So whenever he hits that, I don't want nobody kicking out of that. I don't want Cody Rhodes kicking out of it. I don't want Roman Reigns. I don't want CM Punk. I don't want anyone kicking out of that. I want a protected finisher that nobody kicks out of. So a Tsunami is my preferred finishing move of 2026.
Okay.
Shame that I won't get to see it for, I don't know, another 6 months because he's injured.
Yeah,
true.
Just out of curiosity, obviously we remember we saw IShow Speed turning up in the Rumble and he getting absolutely halved by a certain also injured Vision member. Do you reckon that would hurt like a son of a gun?
Yes.
Yeah, I think at the right speed, the right size guy. Yeah, I think Brock Breaker at least ripped me in half if he speared me at that speed.
The spear is a good move. The problem is it's overused. Certain guys shouldn't be touching the spear.
Yeah, like Jey Uso.
Jey Uso. And even somebody like Christian Cage, who I love Christian Cage, but he's way too small for using the spear on anyone. So the fact he was starting to use it, I was just like, oh my God, you can't have these small dudes using it. Goldberg could do it because Goldberg was the first one who did it. Rhino also could do it, even though he was not tall. He was so stocky that he looked like he murdered people. A bit like Breaker. The stocky guys can do it. Reigns' spear is okay. He's pretty good. Jey Uso should never do it. It's just it, but in general, it's just an overused move, guys. It's just
I actually began to hate the spear because everyone just started using it. It's like an easy go-to for any wrestler, isn't it?
Actually, can I throw something controversial out there? You mentioned Roman Reigns. You mentioned his spear is me, which I agree with. But could you actually even say that his finishing moves are a bit lackluster? Because I get the Superman punch, but it's not a finisher for me, really. No. Is he lacking in something devastating as a kind of a finish?
Well, he's always used a spear, and then the Superman punch was always his setup. And boy, did he overuse them, especially as a babyface. He did like 10 a match. He's like, shut up, stop doing it. He tried to use the guillotine choke when he was a heel. Notice he doesn't use that anymore as a babyface. But he tried to use the guillotine choke as his like submission finisher, which at least it was different. I didn't think it was that great, but at least it was different. But I think I agree with you that Reigns doesn't have any spectacular moves. But then again, because he was a Vince McMahon creation so much, he wasn't encouraged to have this unique moveset. He was encouraged to just do the same thing, to just almost rest on his laurels. And obviously his finishing moves are over now. He's not going to. He's way too late into his career now to start using different finishes, so he's not going to do it now. But yeah, it's boring. It's quite a Roman Reigns has got quite a boring moveset. I've always thought that. Me and Alan used to laugh our heads off at the amount of Superman punches and spears that he would do every match. We got into double figures sometimes, but we just laugh our heads off. It's just like, oh look, another Superman punch. He was boring. Yeah. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as he used to be. He doesn't do them quite as often as he used to. But when he was first getting pushed under Vince, I don't know. Vince must have just told him just use these two moves and just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, just spam them. Yeah,
it's too much.
If he was a wrestler on 2K, he'd be getting his moveset changed to pretty much everything's a spear or everything's a Superman punch.
Yeah. But that's it from our topics. Quickly in the chat, some guys are putting chokeslam again. They're putting it from older wrestlers. I did try and say this year, but let's go over some of their choices quickly. Wayne has got the Tombstone, Last Ride, Hell's Gate, Stunner. That's three Undertaker finishes there, Wayne.
Yeah. The Tombstone, Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania.
Jumping one.
The jumping one. Yeah, I love that execution. Brilliant.
Wayne Bonner, I will allow the Stunner. The Stunner is a valid move. Why? Because Kevin Owens uses it.
That's very true.
Who although he's injured, he's still classed as an active wrestler. He's still.
I'm just going to say I prefer the KO pop-up powerbomb.
You prefer the powerbomb? Yeah. He doesn't do that. Yeah, the Stunner is one of those moves that's so iconic to a certain wrestler. It probably shouldn't be done by anyone else. I do kind of agree with you on that. But at least he got Austin's blessing, which he did. So at least he actually asked his permission. Kuva says the Doomsday Machine. Oh yeah. The Legion of Doom. Yeah, that's not used. Yeah, that Doomsday device. Yeah, we know it's a Doomsday device, but yeah, that's not really used anymore. So, and JBL's Clothesline from Hell. Well, technically, it's just a kind of powerful lariat, so I suppose that can apply. Yeah, but I guess that's it, guys. Thank everyone in the chat for joining us. It is 8 o'clock, so we do have to go. Hope you enjoyed the 4 topics. Alan, myself, and Rebel will be doing another podcast, maybe on this channel. It could be on the Play Pouch. We are going to be talking about 2K, the 2K wrestling game. We've all decided that we all want to talk about it. Con will be joining us when we can all get together. I'm not sure what channel that's be going out on. It might end up going on the Play Pouch because obviously that is the gaming channel, and Rebel will join us for that one. So look out for that on the 2K game that's coming out for me on Friday, but the other guys have already got it. So I'm getting it in a couple of days. Look out for that. But we will be back next week at 7, discussing next week's wrestling, and there'll be some more new topics. So please, everyone, join us when you can. Remember to like, subscribe, stuff like that. Rebel, where can people find you, my friend?
Obviously you'll find me here on the No Sell podcast, and if you do have an interest in that item that gives you much grief at the moment, tequila, football, you can find me over on the United Agenda from time to time. But I will be very good, very evil, and you are cursed.
You are cursed. Alan, I know you can. I know pretty much know where to find you. But do you want to promote anything, Alan? Like you're on Twitter or anything? If you want people to contact you or anything you want to promote.
Yeah, you can find me on the Play Pouch. I'm gonna be doing some more 2K stuff. As soon as Nick's finished with his State of Decay, I'll be back on South Park. And that's where I'll be for the time being.
Right, and obviously you can find me on this channel. Obviously, I am on the Play Pouch. I will be doing a stream at about 9:30 tonight. More State of Decay. I'm about to jump over right away to Dermo's channel. So if you're a Spurs fan, I know some of you in here are. Go and watch me and Dermo. I'm actually probably 5 minutes late. He's going to have a go at me. So I'll be on THFC till I die. But yeah, please join me there. But for this week, for the No Sell podcast, this is Tequila the Body Ventura signing out. Alan, say goodbye.
Yeah, ta-ta, everybody. See you next week.
And the lovable Rebelhausen.
Good night.
What am I over?
Yeah.
Yeah.